All right, get ready because today we're going deep on something kind of tricky, signs of cheating.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at this article. It's called 11 Signs of Cheating, and it's from Very Well Mind.
Okay.
And big plus here is that it's reviewed by a clinical psychologist. So, we're not just, messing around.
It's a touchy subject for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But as we always say, knowledge is power,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to relationships.
Exactly. And I just want to say right off the bat, we are not like trying to give you like a cheat sheet to catch a cheater.
Right.
It's more about looking at some possible red flags.
Mm-hmm.
Because, sometimes just a little bit of insight into like how people act
Yeah.
can be really helpful.
Absolutely. Think of it as adding tools to your relationship toolkit.
Yeah.
We're all about building healthy connections here, and
Right.
it starts with awareness.
Okay. So this article gives 11 signs, and some of them are, pretty obvious, but a few really surprised me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did you know that changes in someone's voice
Oh, yeah.
can actually be a clue?
Totally.
Or how about like getting really, really into fitness tracking?
Uh-huh.
Kind of strange, right?
It can be, but it really can be connected to infidelity.
Right.
Studies have actually shown that a lower voice pitch sometimes can be like a subconscious signal when someone's feeling guilty.
Wow, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
But also super interesting.
It's fascinating how our bodies sort of betray us,
Yeah.
even in those little subtle ways.
It really makes you think, like, what else are we giving away without realizing it?
It does, and that's why it's so important to, pay attention to your gut feelings
Mm-hmm.
and look for patterns of behavior instead of just focusing on, one little thing.
So true. Okay, let's jump into some of these signs.
Yeah.
The article starts with changes in communication
Right.
and not just, talking less, which I think we'd all be kind of suspicious of,
Mm-hmm.
but like specific ways that people might start talking or not talking.
Yeah, so, think about words like stonewalling. It's more than just being quiet. It's like shutting down the conversation, refusing to really engage.
Right.
Maybe they give you the silent treatment or they give you these short, clipped answers that make you feel totally dismissed.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like talking to a brick wall, so frustrating.
exactly. Stonewalling is just one example.
Mhm.
You might also notice more defensiveness, like always deflecting blame
Mhm.
or constantly turning the conversation back on you instead of actually dealing with the problem.
Okay, well, speaking of changes, the article also talks about like a sudden shift in appearance.
Yeah,
Now, obviously, we all like to look good,
of course.
but when does it become like a red flag?
It's all about context. If your partner has always been into fashion,
Right.
then a new haircut isn't necessarily a big deal.
Yeah.
But if they've never really cared much about how they look and then all of a sudden they're obsessed with working out and buying new clothes and super into grooming,
Uh-huh.
well, then it could be a sign they're trying to impress someone new.
It's like that movie makeover montage, but in real life,
Yeah,
and way more heartbreaking.
exactly. And a lot of times it goes along with those communication changes we were just talking about.
Right.
May not really care what you think about their new look.
Yeah.
Or they're always fishing for compliments.
Okay, so we've got the communication shift, the sudden glow up. Then the article talks about spending more time away from home as another possible sign.
Right.
But we all have lives outside of our relationships. So how do you know when it crosses the line?
That's where having good open communication is so important. And I don't just mean saying hey, where were you?
Right.
It's about creating a dynamic in your relationship where you genuinely share your lives.
Yeah.
Even the boring everyday stuff.
Totally.
If your partner is always vague about where they've been, or if they dismiss your interest in their new activities, or if they're constantly canceling plans at the last minute, those are red flags worth paying attention to.
And it's not just about the amount of time, it's the quality of that time, right?
Absolutely.
Like if they used to love doing movie nights, but now they'd rather be anywhere else,
Yeah.
that change in priorities can really say a lot.
It really can. It's about noticing those subtle changes in behavior and having the courage to ask yourself, why is this happening?
Yeah, that's a great point. And it leads to another thing the article brings up about new hobbies. How can you tell the difference between like a genuine interest and a possible cover-up?
It's a good question because we should all be able to, explore new things.
Of course.
But I think it comes down to how much they're willing to share with you. When you're truly passionate about something, you usually want to involve your partner, even if it's just showing them what you've learned or inviting them to an event.
Right.
But if they're secretive or defensive,
Yeah.
or they go out of their way to keep this new hobby separate from your life together,
Uh-huh.
that's when you might want to start paying closer attention.
Okay, so communication appearance, time apart, new hobbies. This is getting interesting.
It is.
And this is where the article gets into some really interesting psychology stuff. It talks about lying not just as like sign of cheating,
Mm-hmm.
but as a way that a cheater might actually try to manipulate the situation.
Right. And this is where understanding defense mechanisms can be helpful.
Okay.
The article points out that feeling guilty can actually lead to projection,
Okay.
meaning the person who's cheating might start accusing you of being unfaithful.
Whoa, that is messed up.
Yeah, it's like turning the tables completely.
Totally.
And it's often a way to deflect their own guilt and shift the focus away from their actions.
Right.
And it creates this sense of confusion and doubt in the relationship.
Mhm.
They might even become super vigilant, like always checking your phone or questioning everything you do, which can really damage your sense of trust and your self-esteem.
So it's not just about the lies they're telling. It's about this whole web of deception they're creating to protect themselves. Speaking of which, the article also talks about avoidance as a big red flag.
Yeah, and this goes beyond just physical avoidance.
Okay.
It's about withdrawing emotionally, not being interested in the things you used to do together,
Mm-hmm.
and even a sudden change in like your values or beliefs.
So like if they used to love going to concerts with you, but now they can't be bothered,
Right.
or they suddenly decide they're not into your shared religious beliefs anymore,
Yeah,
that's got to be a sign something deeper is going on.
exactly. It's like they're building this separate world for themselves,
Right.
one where you don't really fit anymore.
And that's got to be so painful
It is.
for the person who's left feeling confused and abandoned. Okay, so communication changes, appearance, shifts time spent apart, new hobbies lying, and now avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
Is your head spinning yet?
A little bit.
Because we're only halfway through these 11 signs.
I know there's more to come.
There is, but we'll get to those in part 2.
Sounds good. Okay, so ready to jump back in. We left off talking about avoidance, which can be really tough. But this next sign is kind of tricky because it can almost feel like the opposite. Accusations.
Wait, so like they're accusing their partner of cheating?
Yeah.
But isn't that like projection, which we talked about before?
It can be total. That's where the guilt comes out as blame shifting. But sometimes it's more deliberate, like a way to manipulate the situation. By constantly accusing you of cheating, they create this cloud of doubt.
Right.
You get defensive and it takes a focus off what they're doing.
So it's like a preemptive strike.
Exactly. If they're the one pointing the finger, you're less likely to suspect them.
Right.
But it can be so damaging to your self-esteem and the trust in the relationship.
Yeah.
You start questioning yourself, feeling anxious and insecure all the time.
That's not healthy at all.
Not at all. And the article makes a really important point here. Those constant accusations, if they're not based on anything real, can actually be a form of emotional abuse.
Wow.
It's all about control and manipulation.
So if you're in a relationship and you're always walking on eggshells,
Yeah.
feeling like you can't do anything right and you're being accused of things you haven't done,
Right.
it's so important to get support and take care of yourself.
Couldn't agree more. And this kind of ties into another sign the article talks about, indifference.
Okay, this one seems kind of strange to me because we usually think of cheating as being about, intense emotions.
Yeah, passion, desire, all that.
Exactly. So you're saying it can also be about a lack of emotion.
It can. Think about it this way. If someone is emotionally invested in someone else, they might start to withdraw from their main relationship.
Oh.
They become distant, less interested in sex, and they stop putting in the effort they used to.
So they're basically checking out emotionally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that can be so painful for the partner who's still invested.
Yeah.
It feels like rejection, a loss of intimacy, and it's hard not to take it personally.
What's interesting is that the article also talks about the opposite of that, like a sudden increase in sexual interest or demands. How does that fit in?
It's complicated, but sometimes people try to overcompensate for their guilt by showering their partner with attention, including more sex.
Okay.
Maybe they want to prove their love, or they're trying to satisfy needs that aren't being met in the affair.
So it's like they're trying to hide things with affection.
Kind of, but it can also be a way to avoid real intimacy.
Right.
They're going through the motions, but their heart isn't really in it.
Okay. So we've got emotional withdrawal or sudden bursts of affection. Both could be red flags.
Yeah.
And this is where the article gets into some more practical stuff. Money issues.
Right. And this isn't just about fighting over money. It's about the connection between financial stress and infidelity.
Okay.
Studies have actually shown that money problems are a big predictor of cheating.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
When you're stressed about money, it puts a strain on any relationship.
Absolutely.
And the article specifically mentions unexplained credit card charges.
Yeah,
That seems like a pretty clear sign that something's wrong.
it is. Especially if those charges are for things like hotels, restaurants,
Yeah.
gifts that don't seem to be for you.
Ouch. It's like a paper trail leading to heartbreak.
Right. And it's important to remember that financial infidelity is still infidelity.
Mm-hmm.
It's breaking the trust and the agreements you have as a couple.
Okay, so we've got communication, appearance time, hobbies, lying, avoidance accusations, indifference, money problems.
We have
Are you tired yet?
a little...
Because we've got 2 more signs to go. And this is where the digital age really comes in.
Let's talk technology.
Yeah, technology, it's supposed to like make our lives easier, help us stay connected.
Right.
But it can also create this whole new world of secrets and deception.
It really can. And the article talks about some of the tech-related things to watch out for.
Okay.
Think about like sudden password changes
Right.
or obsessively clearing their browser history or even like suddenly being super into privacy settings.
Like if they're suddenly all secretive about their phone or computer,
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely a sign something's going on. And the article also mentions like constantly texting or phone calls,
Oh, yeah.
especially at weird hours.
Especially late at night.
Right.
And don't forget about social media.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Changes in their online behavior could be a sign too.
What do you mean?
Like if they're suddenly interacting with a ton of new people, especially of the opposite sex, it could mean they're looking for attention or connection somewhere else.
It's like a whole new level of red flags to figure out.
It is.
It makes you wonder, how do you even talk about these things without turning into like a jealous, controlling partner?
That's the tough part, right? And it goes back to what we've been saying this whole time. Open and honest communication is key.
Mm-hmm.
If you see these changes in your partner's behavior, especially along with some of the other signs we talked about,
Right.
it's important to have a conversation.
Okay.
But come at it from a place of curiosity and concern, not accusation.
So instead of saying like, who are you texting all the time?
Yeah.
Maybe try something like, hey, I've noticed you've been on your phone a lot lately.
Right.
Is everything okay?
Exactly. Give them a chance to explain themselves and really listen to what they have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, it's not about watching their every move.
Right.
It's about creating a space where you can both feel safe and respected enough to share your feelings.
And what if that conversation doesn't go well?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or you still have those doubts?
Seeking professional help either on your own or as a couple can be really helpful.
Okay.
A therapist can give you a safe space to work through these things, help you communicate better, and come up with ways to rebuild trust.
Okay, so we've covered 10 of the 11 signs.
We have.
And I have to say, it's a lot to take in.
It is.
But that last sign the article mentions is less about spotting red flags and more about what to do if you think your partner is cheating.
Right.
It's called How to Deal with a Lying Spouse, which sounds pretty intense.
It is a tough subject, and I think the most important thing here is to take care of yourself. If you believe your partner is cheating, reach out to friends, family, or a therapist. Don't isolate yourself or keep those emotions bottled up.
And you don't have to have all the answers right away.
Of course not.
It's okay to take your time, process how you're feeling, get information, and decide what's best for you.
Absolutely. And whether you stay in the relationship or leave therapy can give you valuable tools for dealing with betrayal, rebuilding your self-esteem, and moving forward in a healthy way.
Wow, we covered a lot of ground today. It's been heavy, but also really eye-opening.
It has.
So let's do a quick recap of those 11 signs of cheating we talked about from the Very Well Mind article.
Okay, we started with changes in communication, stonewalling defensiveness, even that subtle shift to a lower voice.
Right. Then there were changes in appearance, subtly dressing up, working out more grooming habits, changing.
And then there's spending more time away from home,
Yeah.
often with vague explanations or not wanting to talk about what they're doing.
We also talked about lying, not just as a sign of cheating, but as a way to manipulate things.
Yeah.
And we talked about avoidance, both physical and emotional,
Yeah.
as a sign that something's not right. And don't forget those unfounded accusations, a classic projection technique
Right.
that can really hurt the relationship. And then there's indifference, the emotional withdrawal that can feel really devastating. We also talked about the financial side, how money problems can lead to infidelity and the red flags like unexplained credit card charges or hiding financial stuff. And of course, we couldn't ignore technology from password changes to all the texting. The digital age has opened up a whole new world of potential secrets and deception.
And finally, we talked about how important it is to take care of yourself and get support if you think your partner is cheating.
So important.
Remember, you're not alone.
Absolutely. So before we wrap up, I want to remind everyone that no single sign is a surefire guarantee that someone's cheating.
Right.
It's all about patterns, context, and most importantly, open, honest communication.
Well said. And while we've been focusing on the signs of infidelity,
Hmm.
it's good to remember that these red flags can also point to other problems in a relationship.
That's a really great point. Sometimes what we see as cheating is actually a symptom of something deeper,
Exactly.
like communication breakdowns,
Yeah.
unmet needs, unresolved conflicts.
Right.
So while it's natural to be worried about infidelity, it's also important to approach these conversations with empathy and a willingness to see the bigger picture.
I agree. Sometimes getting professional help, either individually or as a couple, can be the best way to figure out what's really going on and find a way forward.
That's a great way to put it. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into such a complicated and often difficult topic.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about relationships, the better we'll be at building healthy, fulfilling connections.